Good morning. I think. Wait. Am I live? Yeah, I think I'm live. Okay. Good morning. And welcome to another episode of Null News. Now, I want to apologize for last week. And now I know I'm a little early and a little late this morning. It's like 15 minutes late is when I scheduled the stream to go live. But I'm actually a little early. Had a very busy last week, and so yeah, sorry about that. I missed the news, as well as hotel internet has been notoriously bad. I've never actually really used it or depended on it for things other than like Slack and email. And so I've never really noticed how bad hotel internet is. It's just horrible. Absolutely horrible. I think the plan forward is if I have to go on a business trip, I'm not going to stream the news that week. That's just how it's going to have to be. Yeah, it has been weeks, Russell, since you've seen me. It has been weeks. But yeah, so going forward, I'll let you guys know at least a week beforehand. Maybe I'll get a public calendar up somewhere. So when I know that I'm traveling, I'm going to be able to let you guys know. Because yeah, it's just not working out very well. Maybe I'll get a good data plan for my phone to stream from. That sounds horrifying. Yeah, probably not going to do that. That's way too expensive for me. All right. All right. Yep, absolutely has been weeks since I streamed last. For me, it feels like just last week because it's been for some reason when I have long weeks, they also seem short as well. Like yeah. I don't know if that it seems like an oxymoron, but that's the truth. Like the longer and more stressful a week where you work like 16-hour days, the less the faster almost they seem to go. The days are longer. The longer the days are, the faster. I don't know. That's just how it is for me. All right, let's jump into this now. For all of those of you who don't know what's going on, this is just a time where we go over some news for the week in software engineering in the clouds, and after we go and for us to hang out a little bit. That being said, all opinions expressed here are those of my own. They don't represent my past, present, or former past, present, or former or future employers. And yeah, so let's get into it. Yeah, I think Russell, you're right about that. Maybe the more stressful the week, the less you want to remember. I think that's maybe the more accurate. And a stressful day always feels like a really long day for me as well. So, jumping into this, we do have some sad news. One of the co founders of Let's Encrypt passed away. Now, I don't know Peter that well, so I can't tell you about the rest of his life, but I can tell you as far as Let's Encrypt, it's been really foundational to changing the internet for good. So if you don't know what Let's Encrypt is, you should. But if you don't, it's basically a free place where you can get your TLS certificate for your website so that there's really no reason not to have an HTTPS. See this HTTPS at the top? Okay, you can't on this because I cut off the web browser. But there is an HTTPS, and this allows everyone to not have a reason. It used to be kind of expensive to put HTTPS in front of your website. And there are still those providers like Sectigo or whoever else you use that will give you some better certificates. But this is a really fantastic service that you can use for free. And it helps secure everyone because you should never go to a website that doesn't have HTTPS. Anyways, that's kind of the background of who he was, and he passed away. So a little bit of sad news there for Let's Encrypt. Yeah. Again, I never met the person, but yeah. Yes, Russell, you have a great point. There was a time before Let's Encrypt, and there was no free option. Like, the only way to do it for free is, as Russell said, is a self-signed certificate, which, if you're trusting a self-signed certificate, it's really no better than just going to an HTTP website, because anybody could sign one, and if you're just trusting random ones. So then you'd have to, anyways, it's not great. And it wasn't good. So Let's Encrypt is huge. I think it's a huge deal to the internet, and so one of him being one of the founders, I think, is a huge deal. So I wanted to pay my respects for that, because yeah, I think it's a big deal. Now, as many of you know, we start off with security, and I think Let's Encrypt is specifically that. So I wanted to start off with him and that news, and all my well wishes to his family and friends that knew him well. I guess he rode his bike a lot, which was awesome. But yeah. All right, let's jump into the rest of security. I got some pretty fantastic things for security lined up after this. And yeah, so let's jump into it. There is a new GIF attack. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right. The GIF shell attack creates a reverse shell using Microsoft Teams GIFs. Now, I do believe this has been patched, but it was fantastic. I guess there's a lot of Microsoft Team vulnerabilities. Anyways. Uh-oh. Russell, did I miss something? It's not super packed. It's not super packed. Now you have me worried that I missed something. All right, well, let me know what I missed, because I did have a very long week last week, and so I'm probably missing something. If that's the case, we'll cover it next week, because I'm going to have to dig into it. Because I don't have a whole lot on security. Just tracking the work of one 18-year-old hacker. Okay, perfect. Well, you should let me send me their stuff on the Discord, and I will track it for next week as well. So, anyways, there has been a plethora of Microsoft Team hacks that are going out. So, if you're running Microsoft Teams, you should make sure to update. Yeah. Another thing that I saw under security is an Uber exec accused of disguising data breach extortion as bug bounty. Now, this has gone back and forth. So this was it is a Uber executive, a prior Uber executive that did this, not one that's currently running. And basically, they paid hackers $100,000 to sign an NDA. And now they're facing criminal obstruction charges for it. Now, there has been some back and forth from other experts on whether Sullivan should be facing those criminal charges or not, considering that there was NDAs and stuff that were signed and the data was deleted per bug bounty request. So, not sure, but I do find it hilarious that they tried to pass out or pass off a data breach and a security incident as a bug bounty program. All right, and my last security incident, and this is because of availability and because I had nowhere else to put it, but I really wanted to put it in here because I found it hilarious. 2K's quality of life change for BioShock is that Linux users can't play it anymore. It was buggy, it wasn't great, and now it just doesn't work. So that's that was it for me for security. Although I am expecting more next week, since Russell is going to get us onto the right Twitter feed, and I'm going to be following that in the future as well. So please let me know what that is, Russell, and I will give it a check out. I will give it a check out. I will check it out. I will also learn English in my spare time. All right, let's move on to the cloud news. I have quite a bit on cloud news that I found interesting. I'm going to go over them kind of quickly because I think they're pretty self-explanatory. There's the general availability of fast restore for Azure databases for Postgres. So the flexible server performs an automatic snapshot, and now it allows you to restore it at any point in time within the retention period. And it takes several minutes of time. So pretty awesome. Several minutes to restore your point-in-time recovery is pretty awesome. And it is a point-in-time recovery, not a full data backup, which is also pretty awesome. I think that's actually pretty powerful. Generally available multi-instance GPU support in AKS. So this is super powerful if you're looking to do machine learning or those types of things. This is probably where you want to be. Public preview of Azure load testing in UK South. So yeah, if you've been in the UK, want to look at Azure load testing and all of the features in it, it's now in preview there. So that's been an expansion. I think it's a pretty powerful tool, and if you don't know about it, you should go check it out. This is something I haven't been that familiar with, but it seems interesting. Operation Abort. It's in public preview, and this allows operations on Azure Kubernetes service or agent pool to be aborted in the middle of operation. This will not gracefully end the operation, just like that was not a gracefully executed sentence, but it is going to let you stop at whatever step it was in the operation occurred. A lot of times you couldn't stop, or you couldn't just stop. You had to finish some stuff. So anyways, and it will enter the canceled state. So anyways, this is used as a backup for emergency cases. So anyways, I think if I had to guess, this comes from something like a namespace getting stuck in deleting. Super annoying. And on a cloud provider, that can actually be harder to deal with, especially if you don't have direct access to the API server. All right, another public preview is soft delete in Azure Container Registry. Basically allows you to then quickly restore as well. I think that can be pretty powerful. If everything is a soft delete, basically when you soft delete, it is there in this, basically in the trash on your PC for a number of days, allowing you to undo any mistakes. Pretty cool. Very powerful, I think. Monitoring although building another container really isn't that big of a deal, but it's nice. It's nice. Monitoring for actually, now that I bring that up, how I manage containers, it's completely useless. Completely useless. Because I think that you can manage containers easier than that. But for those of you who do manage containers more like you would VMs, super powerful. All right, public preview for monitoring of Ampere ARM, Altera ARM-based VMs and AKS clusters. So basically, all the new ARM stuff that's rolling out that you should be using now has better monitoring. It's really hard to use something if you don't have good monitoring for it. So yeah. On October 1st of 2025, the log analysis alert API and Azure Monitor will be retired. So due warning. I don't know why I left that one in there. All right, generally available now is the Azure Media Services low latency live streaming. Now, I know that we talked about this and we wanted to know what it is. This offers glass-to-glass latency as low as 4 seconds, and they give a range of 4 to 7. Although I'm sure that can't be all-inclusive in case your in-stream user is all the way across the world. I think that probably means 4 seconds in a close range. And this has transcoding built into it, which is pretty powerful. Anyways, it's generally available now. So for all of you who want to do the next Twitch competitor, you probably don't want to use this. Just going to throw that out there. It's super expensive. Although Twitch probably pays a lot too, so. Let's move on to Azure. Or no, not Azure, AWS. We're moving on to AWS from Azure. All right. This is probably not a thing that most of you have used. If it's not, it's on you guys, not me. AWS config announces that you should be using AWS config. Again, but that's not what this is about. This is about the price reduction up to 58% for conformance packs. If you guys are confused about the complicated math here, 58% is a little over half. I almost said 0.5%, but it's a little over half of the cost. So now there is tiered pricing, so it's not that much for the lower tiers, but for the upper tiers, it is 58%. So that is massive. So if you're wanting to do more compliance, and AWS config is a tool to help with compliance, it's definitely a tool for you. And it just got cheaper. So there's no reason not to be using it. AWS Cloud Development Kit, or the CDK, which is a better CloudFormation, announces CDK construct trees in AWS CloudFormation console. This is actually really big, and I wanted to point it out. I think CDK is way better. It's like Plumi's a tool for describing. So if you're wanting to do it in a AWS specific, it only works on AWS. It is way better than CloudFormation, but it generates CloudFormation templates. And the problem with this is sometimes it was hard to trace it back to what CDK generated, what CloudFormation template, and it's a classic problem. That being said, they have worked on fixing that. Pretty cool. If you use it, you should definitely check this out and understand how you can leverage it. AWS Enterprise Support launches AWS Incident Detection and Response. Pretty self-explanatory. AWS Fargate increases compute and memory resource configurations by 4x. That's huge. So Fargate, if you don't know what it is pretty much give us a container and we'll run the container. And so it's serverless because you don't know what server it's running on, or if it's on a Kubernetes. It might be on a Kubernetes cluster. Who knows? It might be on a Bottle Rocket Kubernetes cluster. Who knows? Who knows? Except that they wrote a blog article that tells us exactly how they do it. Not exactly. High level. Anyways, basically you can run 4 times larger instances on Fargate. So any of you that were hitting up the maximum size on something that's maybe not as stateless as you'd like, there's more room to grow in Fargate now. I can't imagine they did this without there being people that were actually hitting that upper bounds. I can't believe that exists. So AppFlow now supports deleting records in Salesforce. I brought this in there because I'm sure that there's the people that have to support Salesforce in AppFlow, and it just got better. And I'm sorry if that's you. My heart goes out to you. I feel your pain. And yeah, I'm sorry. All of us have some rough things we have to do in life, and that's one of them. AWS Graviton 2 based, so Graviton 2 ARM-based machines. You guys should be using them. I know I keep stressing that, and I know that we actually have, Russell and I have talked about some ARM-based videos that we're going to have to make, and we're going to do those. We are. I've been trying to get AWS to partner with me to sponsor them, but no go there. All right, so moving on. That's it for AWS. But there was actually some cool things. I know a lot of times as we get closer to reInvent, AWS starts closing. That's not a family-friendly word. The only word I can think of for closing Actually, the first 3 words, not really family friendly. Okay, so they keep closing the net on information and releases. They want to do those big releases for reInvent, and I can't really blame them. They spend a ton of money on it. So I expect to see less and less. And none of these were big deals, but they were nice. It was nice to see some stuff flowing out. GCP was light as usual. We have this pub sub metrics dashboard for improved observability. So pub sub was always a little bit. So yes, Russell, they are their newest. The newest Graviton 3 is in very few regions right now. And Graviton 2 is still expanding itself. So yes, they expanded Graviton 2, which is in many more regions than Graviton 3. I don't know. Let me see if I can't pull up the regions Graviton 3 is in. But it is very few. Let's see. A lot of marketing. Let's see. Let's see. Not telling me the regions. I can't find them right off the top of my head. Okay, they're just in the US West and East. As of a couple weeks ago. So Graviton 3 is super restricted. So yes, they released Graviton 3, but it's good that Graviton 2 is still expanding. To be honest, like Graviton 3 will spend the next year expanding out. And if you're wanting to use the ARM-based processors, it's good that you have Graviton 2. Plus, Graviton 3 supply is actually really limited. So if you're trying to compete, there's people like Snap that are actively using Graviton and eating away at a lot of that supply. Those Graviton 3s were specifically designed with a couple companies in mind. One of those I can't really talk about, but I might know personally. And a lot of really cool work went into the Graviton 3 and their new Nitro database, not databases, but their new Nitro SSDs for running databases. Pretty cool. I would check out reInvent. There's some cool stuff coming. And yeah, I'm sure that they have a ton of Graviton 2 processors and they're just rolling those servers out. Those servers roll out over a couple years. And so it's not a bad thing to use the Graviton 2. Graviton 3 is better once you get your hands on them, but the rollout's going to be slow. All right. Announcing PubSub metrics dashboards for improved observability. So, actually, PubSub metrics have been notoriously kind of bad. And this is the name of Google's managed PubSub. This isn't just generic PubSub. This is their tool. I hate that they named it PubSub. Name it Timothy for all I care. Don't call it PubSub. Anyways, they have some better monitoring for it. And by better, I mean like basically any monitoring, because like it was pretty rough. And so this is good, super good. This is actually a big deal. If you use Google PubSub, been a problem, not anymore. Other than that, this is their Google Cloud Deploy, which is kind of like the CDK of AWS. It now supports application delivery to Cloud Run. Artifact Registry now supports store Kubeflow. Now supports store Kubeflow pipeline templates in Kubeflow pipelines repositories. Holy crap. And Google Cloud Deploy has enabled 14 additional regions, bringing Cloud Deploy to regional support parity with Cloud Build. Cool. So now if you can use Cloud Build, you can use Cloud Cloud Deploy, which doesn't even make sense to not really use both of those if you were going to leverage them. So it never really made sense, and I'm glad that they now brought parity to it. All right, and that brings us to the major clouds. We actually have 2 runner-ups. So if you notice something from one of these, let me know. I don't follow these as well, so some of my news is a little bit old on these other ones. I can't monitor everything, especially 18-year-old hackers. But announcing DigitalOcean uptime, real-time uptime, and latency alerts. Uptime is something that's actually notoriously hard to do. Now, I have recently had questions of whether to promote DigitalOcean, and I don't, but I will still cover their news. I think that they've mishandled some stuff, and you know what? We need to give them some credit. It's hard to be a company. It really is. Most companies fail. That's the thing about it. And so you're bound to make some mistakes as you're trying to navigate the waters. Now, I think that they've been making a little bit of an effort to fail some, but it's hard, and I give people credit for that. It's hard. That being said, this is an interesting service, and you know what? The null farm is coming out, or the null cloud, however you want to call it. I'm undecided of what to call it. Is coming out. Maybe this is one of the things that we add for, I don't know, for you guys to use is a uptime and latency alert. That would be kind of fun. I want to do some projects on it with you all. This might be a simple and fun one, but anyways, it just basically gives you uptime and latency alerts on your website. Pretty cool. You just give it an endpoint. All right. Linode has added Nomad and Vault to their marketplace. Now, the thing I want to note here is this is not managed Nomad or managed Vault. It installs it, but then it's kind of up to you. And there is a little bit of updating, but it's a little different than a managed service. Now, this is interesting because Linode gives you like containers and stuff, and Nomad is a container orchestrator itself. Kind of an interesting like double thing there, but yeah, anyways, cool. Moving on with our cloud news, we'll move on to the CNCF. So we have a new open source policy engine. Sorry, my eyes got really itchy. I think allergies are bad right now where I live, which was just named one of the rudest places in the United States, which I find disturbing. I don't know who did the poll. I think that they're a little rude. But anyways, yeah, so we've seen a little bit, I'm going to mispronounce its name, but it's like Kekton or something like that, was a policy engine that was recently released, and then there's OPA as well. I have not looked at Polaris. Gonna have to check it out. So yeah, cool. I found this blog article. It was pretty good. It's pretty basic, but if you're using these tools and are new to the area, I think it was a pretty good one. We'll move on. Flux got a new release. So Flux is like Argo CD, except it's like its little brother. I like Flux because it's kind of simple, and I hate it because it's kind of simple. So if you have a simple use case, definitely use Flux, but a new release was released. So that's awesome. Congratulations to them. I know bringing out new releases can be difficult, and if you're using it, definitely give it a check. Give it a check. That's right, write it a check. Cloud Custodian becomes a CNCF incubating project. Words are difficult. All right, so this is another governance as code tool that you can use to manage and automate enforcement policy of cloud security. So you're getting this idea that cloud security is kind of important. And it's cool that there's a lot of new projects coming out around it. I'm interested in seeing where they go, how they operate, and how they look at problems differently. I think this is really awesome. Inside of Kubernetes, the CNCF, we have Kubeflow 1.6 is finally delivered. And it's bringing Kubeflow Pipelines version 2, which supposedly brings a lot of enhancements to how Kubeflow pipelines work, supposedly. I haven't actually gotten my hands on using it because one of the worst things about Kubeflow pipelines is installing Kubeflow. And it's still actually pretty horrible. But I'm still having hope that they'll get better. But anyways, it's good. It's good that they have a new release. I was a little worried because the releases got really slowed down, but they're starting to release again. Hopefully it will be at a standard pace, and hopefully those local installs will get better in the future. Istio came out with a release that had something interesting. Istio's always been this big thing with these sidecars, hard to manage, blah, 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 blah. And now we have ambient mesh. Ambient mesh is pretty cool. It's a new data plane mode for Istio without sidecars. Now, it can't do everything that the sidecar one can. It just can't. But Istio data plane without service mesh can do a lot of what people want it to do. And that's awesome. So you don't have all of the complexity of the sidecars. Now you can still run with the sidecar mode. That gives you extra power and extra things. It's fantastic. So this is actually really cool, and you can go and read more about what ambient mesh does. But basically, this is actually, I think, a really good step in the right direction. Now, I haven't actually gotten a chance to use it, so don't take my word for it. But I'm kind of excited that it happened. All right, that's it for the cloud news. Now, we have some other stuff to talk about. There's an open source project that went closed source that I'd like to talk about. Yeah, I actually don't have a list of open source projects to go over today. I've been struggling with, I went over a lot. I went over a lot of the ones in the CNCF that I use, and now I need to come up with another thing to go looking for where it would be interesting to you guys. Because I feel like I exhausted my knowledge on open source projects. And so if you guys have an idea of ones that you would like me to look into over the next week, I'd love to hear those, because I want to bring and popularize some open source projects that are maybe a little less known. But it's hard if I don't know them myself. So anyways, if you guys have some ideas on that, let me know. Anyways. Does ambient mesh use eBPF? I don't think so. I think it uses something called Z-tunnel, which is their zero trust tunnel. Ambient mesh uses a shared, let me show this to you. Ambient mesh uses a shared agent running on each node in the Kubernetes cluster. This agent is a zero trust tunnel, or Z-tunnel, and its primary responsibility is to securely connect and authenticate elements within the mesh. The network stack on a node redirects all traffic of participating networks through the local Z-tunnel agent. So instead of a sidecar for each one, this is using a Z-tunnel on each node. Although, could we do this with eBPF? Although it doesn't say that Z-tunnel isn't eBPF. To be honest, it doesn't actually go into how they created Z-tunnel. Z-tunnel could be eBPF. I kind of would expect it to be. So, yeah. And then, as Jubril says, still don't know how I feel about sidecars in general. They are a pretty cool way to do stuff with pods. So my general thing is, don't do sidecars unless you have to. That's the thing. Sidecars are basically a bastardization of a concept, and I don't really like it. Now, that being said, sometimes it's the only way to do something. So doing Istio's zero trust networks was pretty much the only way to do it at that level. And so, yeah. Now, that being said, again, I would say don't do it. Sidecars are pretty much the worst thing I think has happened in Kubernetes. Everybody was like, oh, look how powerful they are, but then they make these complex and very breakable things. So I much prefer not to see sidecars at all. So anything that gets rid of sidecars, I'm happy about. All right. This was one of the rudest surveys to be done. Louisville named one of the rudest cities in America. Really? Really? I don't understand this. I really don't understand this. I think that Louisville's a really great place. We are not rude. I don't get it. I read through it. It doesn't make any sense. It says, okay. So maybe we are the rudest, because it's one of the things is refusing to let others merge in traffic and being noisy in public spaces. Maybe if that's rude to you. And this is what I'm imagining. We're all waiting in line to get off the interstate, and somebody just drives up to the front on another lane and then decides that they want to merge at the end. In Louisville, you will not merge. That's just, you're right. You're right. You can get in line, or you can just go to the next exit. That is acceptable. That's not being rude, though. You're the person trying to pull that stunt is being the rude person. So I think this survey is flawed. We're a really nice group of people. Maybe I'm just really rude and I don't know it, but yeah. Anyways, let's move on to actually some computer science stuff. All right, Z Code++, a pre-trained language, something I need to learn. Language model optimized for abstract summarization. So we've talked, or in machine learning, there's a lot of stuff on language models. This one is about abstract summarization, basically trying to summarize a large group of text. So you would use something like that on this document. You would run this Zcode++ to summarize this entire document to get, that nice paragraph or, page or whatever. The reason I brought this up was if you're interested in machine learning or whatnot, I was reading this and I thought that they did a really good job. Sometimes these white papers are really hard to read and understand. And I actually really liked the math and how they went over what they did and some of the challenges that they overcame. And one of the things that was really cool about it is it actually does it with a smaller data set. Like it actually performs better than some of the large it performs better at this task specifically, abstractive summarization, than some of the really large data models. So anyways, it was cool, and I thought it was a really good paper. So you should go out and read it. Actually, Russell, I would need to see a paper that what you call zip merging is faster, because I actually think mathematically models have proven it to be slower, and people just hide behind the fact that they say it's faster, because what happens is people don't actually merge perfectly. You have to slow down and back up and give room, and which means you actually back up the rest of the queue. I actually think that zip merging slows them down, but I would have to look up papers. I don't know. I would be interested in finding it. I would be interested. Because I doubt it speeds it up, and it definitely doesn't speed it up for the people in line, which for me, the rudest thing is to say, well, somebody else that got in line, I deserve to be in that line ahead of them. I don't think cutting in line, even if it sped up the entire queue, is really the right way to go. But I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, we won't get into an argument about that. Let's talk about open source. Now, I have alluded to the fact that business is hard and a lot of businesses fail. And I'm not saying Lightbend is going to fail, but Lightbend has found itself in a sticky situation. And I wanted to talk about it because honestly, I'm torn right now on this. So Lightbend, you can see here, we are changing our license from an open source license to a not open source license. You can read the entire article from their CEO and founder. And yeah, and you can see here, this is the pull request, changing the license. You can see a lot of people thumbs downing it, boom, and blah, 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 blah. There was a whole flame war going on. There's my reaction to new about the licensing changes. There's people saying that they'll no longer recommend Scala because of akka HTTP. So this happened. And this is one in a plethora. Whether it's MongoDB, whether it's OpenSearch. And the real problem, I think the real problem is that we don't. Open source has traditionally, there's a lot of companies that feel like they need to go open source because a company like Uber isn't going to use some startup unless if they're open source. And here, I'll tell you why. What if you go under? If you're closed source and you go under, then I can't continue running my service. And there's a huge engineering cost. But if you're open source and you go under, I can still continue to run my services because it's open source. And so a lot of small startups feel like they have to, for one. Another reason that they do it is for the publicity. I think that's another reason that they do it. And another one is for the community. Now, that last one is the one that resonates for me, is that community. Now, the problem is that we all want to get paid in the end. I mean, we all have families we support, and we all have to do that. Now, how do we do that and continue to support open source? It's a really good question. I think that there hasn't been a good business model. Now, I think some of the better business models is those like SUSE. SUSE keeps trying to ruin itself by pushing away its most talented engineers. But beyond that, SUSE has a really great business model around open source, I think. But it's actually really hard to pull off. It's where we'll just support your open source project and we'll build tools around it that are open source that we also support. I think it's a good way of doing open source, but I think it's a hard way to do it. So these companies have a problem, and I think that we need to work more on how we support these open source communities. I think that's probably the bigger news. I think that hasn't been given the focus. You'll look at these ones like Kubernetes that have tons of support from enterprises, but not all open source projects have that. And so, I saw a lot of people that were really quick to judge here. And I realized that none of these people here actually got paid by Lightbend. They weren't employees. Again, I'm not saying that they did the right thing. I'm saying it's a hard decision, and we should all be thinking about that. What did we do to help make sure Lightbend didn't have to make this choice? I'd love to talk to the CEO and founder, Jonas, because I bet you if he knew of a way to keep it open source, he would. I almost guarantee you this was not a flippant decision out of 13 years of doing it. I would bet you a lot of money that this was not just a flippant decision that he didn't want to have it open source anymore. So then my question is, can we make this work? Because I think it's really important for companies to be able to be open source. And the reason I think it's important is because open source kind of dies, or at least the big majority of it does. Because you're talking about things like open source databases and things like this. If we could find a way for them to operate and still be open source, then it's amazingly more better for the community. Sorry, my English is really rough this morning. But it allows us to make these things because open source is it's not a business model. And that sucks. And do we have to just say you can't open source any project that is part of your business model? Because that also sucks. That's not great either. So anyways, I'm going to talk more about this in a video that I've been working on because it's really weighing on me as far as how we can support open source better in the future. All right, let's talk about new audit log events and event context. It's pretty cool. If you use GitHub and you want to do compliance, there's more features to the GitHub audit log. The biggest thing that they did was they just added like the repo rename and the project rename and the branch update name to include the old name. So basically it used to be that they would tell you who changed it and what it was changed to, but not what it was, which was massively confusing. If you ever look through it, you're like, what was this? Not in the audit log. Now it is. Super good. Super good. This is something I did not know. Node.js creator urges Oracle to release a JavaScript trademark. I didn't know that Oracle had the JavaScript framework trademark, but it's very unlikely that they could actually hold it in court because it's been used too much and they haven't enforced it. And if you don't enforce a trademark, you can't actually enforce it. Like if you stop enforcing a trademark, so that's why sometimes you'll be like, oh, this company was really cruel and enforced their trademark because like somebody was using a Grinch costume and taking photographs, and the problem comes down to is if you stop enforcing it and you know about the things, then you actually you can't enforce it anymore. So Oracle hasn't enforced their JavaScript trademark, so they probably can't. So this is just them saying, give it up. Because you suck, Oracle. Why'd you name your cloud OCI while you're on the board of the OCI? Who knows? All right. New guidance from the PCI Security Standard Council came out. I think that you should read this supplemental information because a lot of this goes into your compliance. What your compliance group is going to look for comes from these security standards. And so there's some guidance for container and container orchestration tools. So I think it's worth a read. Nothing groundbreaking in here. I did read it over the weekend, but yeah, nothing groundbreaking. Comcast says 2 gig speeds are rolling out now to millions. I checked, not available at my address. I'm not going to give my address out. I know that you guys are dying for it. I found this gist. Gonna throw it in the links in this video about personal list of Rust grievances. I don't agree with all of them, and some of them have actually been updated since the initial release. But I do think that they brought up some valid points of why some people struggle with the language, which is good to know going into it. Some of these things are confusing at best, and the large groups of traits can be painful. I think they're good, but they can be painful. So I think that's really good to know, and I appreciate this person putting it out there. They did get some hate for putting it out there, and I wish that people wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not giving you my address to go see what internet speeds. I will search for my own internet speeds. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's all right. I know that you guys would only do nice things if you had my address. Only nice things, right? Actually, I believe that most of you would have to spend a lot of money to to come find me. I don't live near any other tech people, so that helps. Not true. 2 of some of the smartest engineers I know live in the area. They would be some of the smartest engineers I know because I only know engineers. I don't only know engineers in the area. Yeah, thanks for you guys trying to get me to release my address on the internet. It will probably happen in the future, and then I'll have to move, but it will probably happen. I actually think it's probably pretty easy to find, but don't try. All right, I don't care, I guess, if you want to try. All right, that's it for today. You can now use LinkedIn to find out who he knows. Yeah, Russell's the hacker here. I'm not accepting any friend requests on LinkedIn anymore. Actually, go follow me on LinkedIn. I don't know why you would do that, but people do follow me on LinkedIn. I post some of my videos. Guess what? One thing I did while I was rampaging across the United States, I actually edited my Kubernetes 125 video. It's edited. I just have to do some animations for it and some screenshots for some animations. And that video's out. That video's out this Friday. Guaranteed. I also did a rough edit on my log compaction. I was kind of productive. Not super. I'm not going to point out who the smart engineers are that I know, because now you guys are going to pester them on LinkedIn, and they would probably come murder me because they know where I live. So please don't bother them. Actually, that gives me a good intro into, I have companies I won't work with because of their salespeople. And the worst one that I remember, not that I remember, this happened like a year ago, and I will remember it probably for the rest of my life, is this salesperson. Basically, I had a friend that worked at the company that recommended me check out the product. And he was like, yeah, I like the product. And I think this actually helped encourage him to leave. Anyways, he said, do you want to talk to somebody? I was like, sure, I'll talk to somebody. Well, this salesperson called me on my work phone, called me twice on my personal phone, messaged me on LinkedIn, found my personal email and emailed me there. This guy was a cyber sleuth. Then he went on to message my friend and tell him that I was ignoring him, all in 30 minutes. All of this happened in 30-minute time window. On top of that, he found my wife on Facebook and messaged her. And I had super angry things, and I was like, I will never work with you guys, period. I don't even want to hear about your product. Like, I'm done. I was like, pfft. Anyways. So it was a disaster. And then the dude hid behind, it's my job. He was like, it's my job. And I was like, no, it's not your job to cyberstalk and harass people. Like, I was like, you don't send me another message or I will file harassment. Like, this is the end of our conversation. It's the end of there's a company I won't work with. I'm not going to say their name here because they haven't done that to anybody else that I know of. But I won't work with them anymore. And thankfully, my friend doesn't work there anymore, so I don't have to feel bad. All right. Yeah, why are salespeople so creepy? Like, can we stop? I think this is it. That salesperson is creepy, but he lands 2 or 3 customers because he's just so annoyingly persistent. And because of that, he hits his quota and is like praised in the sales industry. But can we stop it? Like, can we encourage good, honest salespeople? Like, I just don't know. But I will name them in Discord. I probably have named them in Discord. I'm a little bit more open there. Although there's probably more people that read the Discord than watch these shows, so I don't know which one's more damning. It wasn't to drag the name through the garbage again. I blame the individual more. I don't know. It could have been that the company had policies to drive this, so it could have been the company's fault. I don't really know. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for your time. Thanks for putting up with me being a bad steward last week. Shame on me. And I look forward to releasing some videos actually, as I'm starting to get more into the groove. Getting the recording down, getting the editing down. There was a new update to Adobe Premiere, which made it suck less on the Mac, except audio stops working after a little bit. But the rest of it works really well, so I'm good. I was trying to use Resolve, and it's just, I've been learning, and it's like, how do I even cut this thing? And every step took way too much time and work. I have it like half edited in Resolve, and I'm just happy that the new Premiere version came out. Yeah, Adobe did buy Figma. I didn't announce it here because I don't know. We don't use Figma. Although, actually, I should have brought it up because a lot of teams, graphic design teams, use Figma to design your UIs. So that probably was a good thing to bring up. I'll bring it up next week. Adobe buys Figma. I actually really like Figma, I think. Yeah, I really like Figma. I do. I'm hoping Adobe Cloud gets Figma because then I'll get Figma. Now, Adobe Cloud also has other subscriptions. So like if you want Substance Painter, you have to actually use a different subscription, which totally sucks and is horrible because it's not expensive enough as it is. So I'm hoping Figma comes to their standard cloud suite because if it does, that would be fantastic. And it won't, and Adobe won't ruin Figma for at least a year. You're good for at least a year. All right, that's it for me today, guys. I got to get to work. It's great having you guys along for the ride, and I will see you next week.